Here we go. It's time to dance, Donna.
We burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be. I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful best day ever. And for those of you who are new to the Lillian McDermott radio show, the purpose of the show is to provide a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening friend, will feel empowered to learn a new truth and to live the life of your dreams. Now, I want to encourage you, again, to put my number, 407-373-5959, in your phone on your favorites, because I was told that people don't speed dial anymore. Put it on your favorites, 407-373-5959, because today's topic is probably going to affect every single one of us in a different way. So we're giving away a book, and I'm going to do, I would say, I normally do 3s and 5s. I think this time I'm going to do the fourth caller. So the fourth caller or texter at 407-373-5959 will be able to get a free copy of this very important information, very important book. Now, medical journalist Donna Jackson Nakazawa's father died in a hospital from an autoimmune condition. Many years later, she found herself in that same hospital with the same autoimmune condition. And she'll correct me if I read this correctly or not, but this caused her to search deep within herself and research the effects of childhood trauma on health. She will share what she learned, while all the books that she's written basically is to help people figure out the link between their childhood and their health. And her latest book is called Childhood Disrupted: How Biography Becomes Your Biology and How You Can Heal It. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so grateful that Donna Jackson Nakazawa, I love the name, is here to do just that. Welcome, Donna, on the Lillian McDermott Radio Show.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. So tell us your story, because I was amazed as I started reading your book. I'm thinking, this is everybody's story, really.
Well, you stated it very well. When I was in my early 40s, I was diagnosed with a number of autoimmune diseases, one of which, Guillain-Barré, is very similar to multiple sclerosis, except for a more sudden onset, and it has a wide range of possible outcomes. And when I was 12, my father had died suddenly from complications during surgery for a different autoimmune disease, actually not Guillain-Barré. He had rheumatoid arthritis and a bowel condition, ulcerative colitis. And anyway, I was 42. I was in the hospital at Johns Hopkins. People were telling me I had no white blood cell count. I might never walk again. And it hit me that it was the very anniversary of my father's death. I was in the hospital, and I was the exact same age. And it just made me realize that there's so much that we don't understand about human health and well-being. If I could be lying almost dead with 2 young children at home, at the same age from a similar disease in the same hospital as my dad. And I had been a science journalist for a while. After that, I set out to write a book called The Autoimmune Epidemic, which probably many of your readers know, looking at all the different environmental influences on autoimmunity and on our immune system, and coined the term autogen, because for a long time we learned all about how cancer could be caused by environmental influences, but people hadn't been looking at that in terms of autoimmune disease. Yeah. Wrote that book. Then I wrote a book called The Last Best Cure, looking at how we within our own body, through something called neuroimmunology, or the relationship between what's going on in our mind and our stress response and the degree of inflammation in our body. So The Last Best Cure really looked at that relationship between our own toxic stress chemicals and our inflammation and disease. And as I was writing that book, in which I sort of felt like I looked at how to go green in your life, how to go green in your environment, and then in The Last Best Cure, how to go green in your own mind. Wow. I hope that anybody.
Well, I tell you what, Donna, we're going to continue our conversation about your book. And I want to encourage you to call 407-373-5959 or the book called Childhood Disrupted. And we're going to continue our conversation with Donna Jackson Nakazawa when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Hey, Brian.
I'll be right here.
Brian?
You.
Yeah, if you put the music on, it has to be really, really low. It was blasting us, and I could not hear her.
That's the lowest it goes.
No, well then something's going on. Something is going on. I think I'm going to switch here to get better lighting. Is this better lighting?
Oh yeah, that is much better lighting.
Let me make sure. That's my grandson back there. On all those pictures. Okay. Yeah, I've got the lighting in here. And so I will move everything over here. So then if that's as low as you can get it, it was distorting her voice. So I don't know what happened or what's happening. Maybe.
I mean, I could put it closer to 0, but it's lower than I've been doing it the past couple of days.
Well, did you hear? Is that why you stopped talking, Donna?
Yes, it was too loud. I couldn't talk over it.
Yeah, something is going on with that, because there are times where you can barely hear it, and that's what we need. We just need that gentle reminder that the music is on, just in case she doesn't see it. Did you see the chat that it was?
No, I see the chat, but I couldn't talk over it. I would have been screaming.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go ahead and figure out, Brian. I know that if you think that that's the lowest it'll be, then perhaps maybe I don't know what to tell you other than just don't put the music on. But you've done it before where it's just like a little bit audible and we can still talk. I don't know, perhaps maybe the settings.
See if it goes lower the next break.
If the music is a problem, then since I'm watching you, you'll be on video too, but you could just hold up the finger.
I can go like, where's my finger? I can go. Can you see that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so that means look at your chat box.
Yeah, I'll totally get that. Yeah,
okay. We'll figure something out. I'll keep an eye on the. Oh my goodness, the recording is still on. I normally turn it off. So here you go, my listening friends and now my viewing friends. You get to see what happens in between the show. Here we go. I wish I could edit that part, Donna, but I can't. Maybe someday I'll learn how to edit.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
And welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where we always learn from one another. And today's teacher is Donna Jackson Nakazawa. she has written the new book called, well, actually it's not new. It was released last year, right, Donna?
Correct. Yeah.
It's called Childhood Disrupted. So let's finish your story, because you had shared that you found yourself at the same age, at the same hospital, in the same room as your father, and you started learning when he died.
Yeah.
Many years later.
Sure.
And because that was a little, I was explaining it to my husband, and I was putting it in my blog, because every week I do a blog, and he goes, can you say that again? And so I said it again. And so we kind of rephrased it, because it's something hard that you would even notice that one thing that we talk here on the Lillian McDermott radio show is the body will not let you forget what your mind wants to neglect.
Right.
And you're the epitome. Oh my goodness. It's just because of the break, I'm just still back there. I need to move forward. Okay.
This is for real women living a real life.
That's it. Okay. So now you've written all these books. You did the autoimmune epidemic. Is that what? And then
Correct.
the last best cure.
Correct.
And now you have Childhood Disrupted. Now you caught my attention right away as you share your story in the book. And then the first chapter, you have us take a little test. That is a very important test.
Absolutely.
It's the A study. It's adverse childhood experiences.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that for a second and what it's all about.
Sure. So when I had that epiphany that I was in the same hospital as my dad, almost dying at the same age with young children, I didn't want to leave at home, just as I'm sure he hadn't wanted to leave his young children behind. I began to write The Last Best Cure, and in the middle I came across this amazing study called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, done by Robert Anda and Vincent Felitti, and started in 1995, and I call it the greatest study never told. And in this study, two researchers from Kaiser Permanente and the CDC, they looked at 17,000 individuals. Now, these were largely middle-class, college-educated individuals, and they compared their childhood histories to their adult health outcomes. And what they found blew them away and literally changed all of science. Mm-hmm. So they asked 10 questions, some of them very clear types of childhood abuse. Were you ever physically abused? Were you ever sexually abused? But they also asked questions which we would consider more living room variety type adversity. Mm-hmm. Were you ever chronically put down? You know, did your parents put you down a lot? Did you feel humiliated? Did you feel like your family didn't have your back? Did you feel like no one loved you? Did anyone take you to the doctor when you needed to go to the doctor? So it was split between what we think of as clearly severe abuse, what we think of as more mild trauma, and family dysfunction. Mm-hmm. And then there were situational questions. Did your parents divorce? Did you lose a parent? Did you have a parent incarcerated? These came down to 10 questions, and your readers can find the ACE questionnaire in my book, and they can find it online at acestudy.org. And what they found was that whether traumas were overt, like sexual violence, or more common living room variety adversity, like constantly being put down or having a parent with depression or bipolar disorder, that these were enormously common. That was the first finding. 64% of Americans reported having experienced at least one type of adverse childhood experience. And this amazed them, right? Because that's a lot. 40% had 2 or more adverse childhood experience scores. And I want to be clear with your listeners, the way that this test is scored is that you get a score of 1 for each category, not for each event. So people always ask me that. But here's what happened next. They then compared those findings to the adult health records. And that was mind-blowing. People with an ACE score of 3, so let's say your parents divorced, and your mom was depressed and your dad was an alcoholic, was a drinker.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship between an ACE score of 3, whatever those ACEs were, was related to a 3 times greater chance of having cancer as an adult.
Yeah.
12 times chance of committing suicide or trying to commit suicide. And these statistics went on and on related to heart disease. And here's a real kicker for someone who's worked for the chronic illness and autoimmune community for 20 years. The relationship between a woman and each ACE score, and later developing an autoimmune disease so serious she was hospitalized, increased by 20% per ACE score. So loop back to my story.
Yeah.
And let's say I had an ACE score of 3. That ACE score of 3 increased the chances I would be lying in that hospital room with an autoimmune disease so serious I had to be hospitalized by 60%.
Mm.
So these statistics really made scientists wake up and ask, well, what's going on? We've long understood, right, that what happens in your childhood is going to have an emotional impact on you later in adulthood. But here we were seeing for the first time that really the body never forgets on a biophysical level. And as the title of my book says, your biography becomes your biology. That's something that caused scientists to ask another question, which is, how is this happening? Like, how is it that the body changes physically at 12 or 14 or 17 and disease develops at 30 or 40 or 50? What are the biological pathways for that? And it also taught us something really, really important, and that is that cutting edge science tells us that, you know, what kills you doesn't make you stronger.
Mm.
What doesn't kill you doesn't make
yeah.
you stronger. Sorry, I misstated that. That old idea we've all grown up with. You just grit it out. You push. You put on your big girl boots and keep going and forget about it. Just go. That what doesn't kill you doesn't make you stronger. In fact, the opposite is true. Cellular changes are happening. Changes are happening to our DNA and to the genes that oversee the stress response for life. And early adversity causes these changes to the architecture of the brain and the immune system in ways that play out for the rest of our lives.
It's amazing. Now, I've known this. I mean, I've done this shows, but no one has really written a book as eloquent as I've seen in this one. So you give stories of 3 people at the beginning of your book. I think it's Laura, John, and Georgia.
Correct.
And even though they're different stories, I don't know what their score was. I went back after I read their stories and I took the ACE study or the test. And I was a 2, possibly a 3.
Sure.
Because the word was often.
Yeah, sure.
You know, that word right there kind of like made me a 2. It didn't happen often, but it happened enough that it developed a memory in my body. And just recently,
then you're a 3.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, but I've been healing that 3.
Sure.
I would say I have had, and I've done some shows on, I don't know if these names will sound familiar, or generational pattern shifters.
Okay.
Have you heard that terminology?
I haven't.
Well, we'll have to talk about it on the break.
Yeah.
And for those of you that follow me on the Lillian McDermott radio show, you can go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Heather Dane and I just did a show on Monday, as a matter of fact, on generational pattern shifters. It's amazing how we're doing this here.
Sure.
And then I also took a course with Dr. Mona Lisa Schultz. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she talks about cell memories and how these cell memories go to different sections of the body that we call chakras.
Interesting. I do not know that work, but
And I'm telling you, what she does is somebody calls her because Dr. Oz uses her, the big doctors where they can't figure out what's wrong with a patient. They call Mona Lisa, and she's been on my show several times. All she needs to know is your name, your age, and what area of concern in your body, and she can tell you what your emotional root cause is.
Wow.
Yeah. So I just took a class, a whole week boot camp on this. So as I'm reading your book, I'm going, this is exactly what I've been learning in the last, 6 months.
Right.
It is, and how difficult it is for us to say, this is happening because of my childhood. And let's go a little bit further. With Heather Dane, she talked about how sometimes this cell memory can pass through our DNA from our fathers, from our mothers, into our bodies. Have you been able to confirm that?
There's a chapter in my book in which I talk about where I talk about this from a scientific level. And so what we understand now in the past 2 years is that, so first, let me back up and just say quickly that when kids are growing up and they have chronic, unpredictable stress, it's toxic to the immune system. And the reason is that the brain and the body, the stress response, begin to live on high alert. Mm-hmm. And as that happens, it floods a child's immune system with inflammatory chemicals that in turn change the genes that oversee the stress response for life. Another fancy word for that is gene methylation or epigenetics. Mm-hmm. So this high stress response of not knowing what's happening next, I'll talk about that again a little in a few minutes, sets a child up to become hypervigilant. That changes the genes that oversee the stress response for life, and it sets kids at a different stress response level. They're at an alert level. What happens with that is that these genes are now functioning differently. We can now see that in those, let's say, men and women who have had maltreatment, Yale researchers recently saw that they have changes to the DNA that oversees the stress response on all 23 chromosomes.
Wow.
And other researchers have been able to show that those genetic changes are soft-wired into the female egg and appear in the next generation. So there you go. That's the scientific level.
That is unbelievable. And for many of us that are experiencing autoimmune diseases or fibromyalgia, all these things that we cannot understand, but yet we'll be taking a pill for it.
Right.
And it just doesn't work until you start healing. There's so many different levels of the onion, and we're going to continue talking about these levels with Donna Jackson Nakazawa when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Oh my goodness. This is exactly, Donna, it's like almost like when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
That's right. It all comes together. But this is all so everything you're talking about is on a spiritual level. What I'm talking about is on a scientific level.
Yeah.
It's the science that that really shows that these changes are on a cellular level and they are passed on generation to generation in multi-faceted ways.
So many different layers. I remember one time, because I remember one time someone said to me, do you think this is emotional? And I'm like, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah, right.
It's like I'm a happy person and, there's everything is beautiful in my life. How could it be? How could this be? But someone probably that was ahead of me that planted that seed in me that I rejected.
Well, also your own experiences, if you have an ACE score of 3, that's considered scientifically significant. So that means that in your own story, you went through changes in the architecture of your brain and in your immune system that will cause your first of all, your brain connectivity is going to be a little different. We can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And your immune response is going to be different for sure.
Well,
so we can cover, I can get as deep in the weeds as you want.
well, you know what? I want to be able to sprinkle as much as we can, because there is so much. I've had Bruce Lipton on the show. I don't know if you're familiar with Bruce Lipton with the Biology of Belief.
Yeah.
And he talked about, he was the first one, oh gosh, that was like 6 years ago, that talked about epigenetics.
Yes.
And so little by little with this show has helped me heal the most of anything that I've been able to do. And I think it's because of people like you that have done the work way ahead of me.
Well, it takes 2 or 3 years to research and report and write a book. And, you talk to hundreds of scientists and try to distill it down. And that's a service that you want to provide when you write a book, is to give people, I don't know, a year's education in one sitting.
As you are doing research and talking to the scientists, and I know that science is very important, because, that gives your work credibility, but that we are a mind, body, spirit, And when we treat one symptom, we neglect the other parts of us. How have you taken this work? I know that you've written books to help and heal people, but have you done any coaching yourself?
I do get asked to do coaching. I haven't taken that on yet. I've been really busy and writing books. I'm about to go on a lecture circuit. I'll be everywhere from New York to London to Virginia to Vancouver.
Wow.
It takes a lot out of you to do all that with autoimmune diseases and raise a family. And
have you been able to heal from that? Have you been able to
heal from my autoimmune conditions? Mm-hmm. I'm doing better than I was told I would do. So to me, I don't think of healing as an end. Mm-hmm. I think of it as a process. So I was paralyzed twice with Guillain-Barré. The second time, it took me really a year to be functional with my legs and get around comfortably up and down stairs. Mm-hmm. Without a sling or being carried. And so there are physical changes to my body, some of which are at a level that it would be really hard to reverse. Yet, with that, I live a really great life. Am I going to run a marathon? Probably not. Does that make me sad?
But do you want what? Do you want to run a marathon?
No.
Then they're good.
Yeah, right. I walk the dog every day. As one of my doctors said, when I said, am I going to dance with my husband again? She said, well, how much dancing did you do?
Yeah. Right. Well, here we go. Now, when we come back, I'll talk about my social media real quick and then reintroduce you.
Okay.
373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
And welcome back to the McDermott Radio Show, where you can hear us worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. I'm your host, Lillian McDermott, and I want to encourage you to go through life with childlike wonder. When you look at a child explorer, they really don't know the name of anything, but they can have fun with a paper bag. So I want to encourage you today to have fun with a paper bag and look at life in a totally different way. Today's teacher is Donna Jackson Nakazawa, and you can find her work at donnajacksonnakazawa.com. And of course, as always, you can go to the website and click on her name and it'll take you right to her website. But here's what I want to encourage you to do as well. I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com, become a subscriber. This is where we come together to grow. During the break, I was sharing with Donna that I would say that this show has been my greatest healer, my greatest teacher, because people like Donna, teachers from all over the world, world-renowned teachers, have been on the show to teach us a little bit more of what we didn't know. And so if you're ready to take your life back, and as you know, my registered service mark is you can take a pill, you can take responsibility. It's not that I'm against pills, but I'm for doing everything possible to learn what that root cause is. If you can change it nutritionally, if you can change it spiritually, if you can change it in any way, do so. So I want to encourage you to join me on this movement of taking 100% responsibility. Go to whenyouneedafriend.com. And when you do that, it's a 2-step process. So you confirm once you sign up. I'm trying to change that because it's a little complicated for some people. But once you subscribe, you confirm, and then you'll get 2 gifts from me. My access to my positive affirmation, mind, body, spirit, positive affirmation audio link, and my 90-day challenge to self-love ebook. But that's not all. Make sure you check out my sponsors, because without my sponsors, this show would not happen. So check them out and see how you can support them so the show can continue. I also want you to encourage you to grow with me at whenyouneedafriend.com and all my social media, including Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And on demand, you can find me on demand on iTunes, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, as well as YouTube now. So you're hearing us, but we're also recording this, and this particular show, unedited, even the things that happen between that are not supposed to be on the air, you'll get to see them on there. So I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com and click on YouTube, and it'll take you there. We're working at downloading all the information or the videos onto my website as well. And last but not least, be the 4th caller or texter at 407-373-5959. That's 407-373-5959. This book, Childhood Disrupted, for those of you who find yourself with lots of aches and pains, autoimmune disease, things that are happening in your life that you just can't explain. Your doctors might think, maybe in your head. Well, think again. It's in your body. It's your experiences. Maybe unfulfilled desires. Who knows? But Donna Jackson Nakazawa, I love saying her name, has done the research. And I love your book. I love your book. And so let's get deep into this. Let's go deeper into that next level. So Donna, once you find out that you have a score of 2 or 3 or even 10, because some people react differently to stress. So what's your next step? What do you suggest is the next step?
Well, I think that the understanding for most readers I hear from, and I hear from thousands of readers who have never seen this science before. And as soon as they take that ACE test, the ACE questionnaire, and they see their score, and they read about the science coming out of these top research institutions relating early, unpredictable chronic stress to later immune dysfunction, which can be chronic pain, heart disease, cancer, autoimmune disease, fibromyalgia, anything that you can think of. It's this big light bulb moment. It's this aha. It's this relief. For many readers, they feel as if they've been swimming against really an impossible tide their entire lives. Their health isn't what it should be or what they want it to be. Doctors don't have answers or all the answers they need. Often their relationships are also very stressful, because what comes along with these biophysical changes in our DNA that oversees disease are changes in the brain that change the way we react to the world around us. Mm-hmm. And that is a really important part of this research, because it helps explain the relationship between adversity in childhood and chronic unpredictable stress in childhood, and later having a mental health challenge, which we all know can be something in which people feel even more so that they aren't validated, or even more so that there's no help for them. And so this relationship between what happens in childhood and what happens in the brain in terms of the connectivity and the neural synapse connections between important areas of the brain that help us to react appropriately and to perceive and interpret our world appropriately. This research is just as important as the research showing the link between changes to cells that could cause more inflammation.
Okay.
So, and in fact, my next book is about that. It's really about the changes to the brain and how this affects people their entire lives. So in the book, I followed 13 individuals who had ACE scores of 3 or higher. And actually, I started out with 25. I ended up writing about 13 of them. I followed them for almost 2 years and went through the process of their taking the test, having that revelation that there was this relationship on a biophysical level, and then looking at the different things that they did that were science-based modalities to try to reverse those DNA changes. And so this is really important.
Yeah.
We know that epigenetics are not forever, that you can turn bad epigenetics into good epigenetics, that those genes I talked about that change in childhood and change in a way that cause you to have a high stress response, or what you might think of as a super high inflammatory response, that we can change those genes back again so that you have a more appropriate inflammatory response. And we can see this through studies on meditation, where the same genes that change in children who have maltreatment so that they have a higher stress inflammatory response change back again in people who go through just 8 hours of meditation practice. So this is mind-blowing that the brain is so plastic. And this makes us think, well, what other ways can we help change these epigenetics? If it's possible to change them, this is the best news in the world. What I found following these 13 individuals is everybody found a different way. Meditation isn't for everybody. For some people who've had a lot of trauma, they really can't sit down and try to quiet the mind. They need some other intervention first. Some people worked with a therapist to do somatic experiencing, just to allow those feelings from the past to come up again and deal with them safely. People did writing to heal, enormously powerful. Writing about their experiences through James Pennebaker's research shows that even writing 20 minutes a day for 4 days about trauma that happened a long time ago helps alleviate some of the stress response and is related to better health outcomes. So I write about dozens of ways that people decided to reverse their biology. And I'm happy to say that these 13 patients are doing enormously well.
Very good. And you can tell the detail that you have taken in your book to make sure that people know that if it doesn't fit you, there might be something else that fits better. I mean, you even talk about EMDR. Is that I'm trying to find. So you're talking about the therapies that people can take. And I know just recently I was exposed to or told about pineal decoding or and I remember the what?
I don't know what that is, but
okay. We'll talk about it during the break. How about that? There's just so many different ways. Every person, it resonates different for every person. And I love the fact that you have different options. You have art as well.
Absolutely. Bernie Siegel is a big believer in art therapy. For every person, there'll be a different thing that resonates deep within.
Yes.
And the important point is that with early adversity, genes have been altered. You're on high alert, high emergency stress response. Neural connections have been changed. This is what we know categorically happens in a child's body when they're undergoing chronic stress.
Absolutely.
And it can be changed.
Absolutely. And that's great news. That was the great news Dr. Bruce Lipton gave on this show, that we can, the epigenetics, the mind can trump our DNA, how we think about something. And so today there is hope For those of you who would like a copy of the book, Childhood Disrupted, be the fourth caller or texter, 407-373-5959. I'm not checking my phones. I am looking forward to seeing who the winner is at the end of the show. And we're going to continue our conversation with Donna Jackson Nakazawa when we return worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. I remember when Bruce came on the show. He's been on the show several times, and he said, you know, when you're by the age of 7, before the age of 7, sometimes a little bit older, depending on how mature the level of maturity is,
Sure.
that you are a theta. You're in theta mode.
Yeah.
And you're like this human tape recorder.
Right.
And then you take this tape recordings and it goes into the back of your mind, or it becomes your subconscious, and that's how you continue to act for the rest of your life. You don't even know it's there. And that the only
right. Yeah.
It's rewriting those tapes that you're talking about.
Absolutely. And what we know is that when the brain has the ability to override those stories and create new sensations, new awarenesses, we can override those tapes. So it's very powerful.
It is. Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay. So another thing I wanted to, the pineal gland, that's right here. That's the sixth chakra, I guess.
Yeah, right there.
Right there. And so that is where, you know, they come, there are people that are like therapists that do this. They become specialized in it, and they help you decode all the programming. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's just another therapy that people can go to if they decide that this is something. But you talk about a lot, and I want to talk about forgiveness.
Sure. Very important.
And beyond that, healing. Because I knew a woman that she didn't have MS, but they thought she had MS. And at one point she was in a wheelchair, and then I would see her again and she was out of the wheelchair. And when you don't know, at the time I was younger, I didn't know how to address that. And
Sure.
So I would like to talk maybe on the air. How do you, not consolidate, how do you say, I can change my life by the way I deal with my past?
Sure. Yep, we can do that.
So, okay. And is there anything that you would like to share with either off the air or on the air that these people that the 14 or 13 people that you're working with that had 3 or more. Oh, there you go. This is our last dance, Donna. So let's make it count.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
And welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where we always learn from one another. And today's teacher is Donna Jackson Nakazawa. And you can go to donnajacksonnakazawa.com and learn a little bit more about all her books. Because if this is resonating with you right now, if you're driving or if you're, accidentally, which is no accident, I don't believe in accidents, that you are listening to this or watching this later on some YouTube channel or Facebook, somebody shared it or whatever, just know that we are speaking right to you. If you're listening to this, there may be something that your body wants you to become aware of. Now, Donna, we talked about in the break on how to rewrite these tapes, but how can we say, okay, I am going to take my life back. Even though this person treated me in such and fill in the blank, and I think I have dealt with it. Logically, I've dealt with it. They can't hurt me anymore. How do you make that next step to saying, yeah, but I still need to heal? even though I think logically I've dealt with it, how do we get to that next deeper level of the peeling of the onion and heal, truly heal?
I think for many people, it comes as a realization that they've tried many things and what they've tried isn't cutting it for them. And many people come to an awareness that, and often, honestly, it's a health crisis, loss of a relationship, a sudden, everything is different than it was before, that causes individuals to stop and say, maybe the things I've been trying aren't enough. Maybe there's some deeper question that I need to ask. And for people for whom the ACE research resonates, they know it right away. Mm-hmm. I hear from these people all the time. I hear from readers all the time. As soon as I read the questions and I saw my score, I knew this was true for me, that these things that happened when I was 7 or 10 or 12 or 15, that they're still in me. It made every bit of sense. And so often it is a big life awakening, and realizing that everything that they've tried has helped, no doubt. The doctors, the protocols, the diets, the smoothies, the supplements, the medications, whatever, everything has helped, but they're still swimming against that impossible tide. And so they begin to say, well, what are the stones I haven't turned over? And as I said before, a big part of this is being willing to go on that internal journey. And for many people, it's for the first time. So that can include working with an outside person in therapy, somatic experiencing, EMDR, neurofeedback is turning out to be particularly powerful for individuals with ACEs, because it helps rewire the responses of the brain and those theta waves and delta waves and alpha waves in the brain in a way that they might have been changed earlier. For other people, it's more of a personal journey into meditation and forgiveness practices and mindfulness-based stress reduction. And that brings up something really important. The past, as you said, is hard to forgive for many people. I can think of one individual in the book whose dad was just so chronically humiliating to him his whole life, even into adulthood. And he just couldn't figure out how, if I'm going to change, if I'm going to heal. He was really sick, in and out of the hospital, one gut disorder after another, chronic fatigue. He realized he had to forgive his dad, that there were things he was going to have to do to put the past behind him. And there was, just like that children's book, you can't go around it, you have to go through it.
Yeah.
You all know that one. You have to go through it. There's no shortcut. And he was able to put together a set of practices for himself, forgiveness practices. I can tell you the work of Jack Kornfield, the meditation teacher, is particularly powerful in this area. And as Jack Kornfield says, and is well quoted for this, you don't forgive for the other person, you forgive for yourself.
Yes.
For yourself. Forgiveness is for us. And
I want to add something, Donna. I believe it was Buddha. Some people say it wasn't Buddha, but I believe it was Buddha who said that lack of forgiveness or holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Right. That's right. And, we know what happened to Alice in Wonderland. A little bit of poison every day is very dangerous. So that sipping on that poison is so toxic, and being able to let that go. Another woman I worked with, her parents, she'd had a lot of medical trauma as a child, and her parents had been extremely neglectful and humiliating to her in the face of her medical trials. And she wrote them a book. And she did it with her therapist. And she told them that if they wanted to keep talking, they'd have to read her personal book. It wasn't a book for publication. And it was just, even though things didn't go perfectly with her parents after that, to be honest, the process itself set her free. Her health changed categorically after doing that. And again, we know that these different approaches are related to an improvement in immune function, cardiovascular function, reduction in asthma symptoms, pain symptoms. There can no longer be any question that realizing and experiencing and letting go of past trauma is related to better physical outcomes.
Yes.
I understand that. Some people did EMDR, eye movement desensitization therapy. Everyone chose a different path. I will say, for most people, it was 3 or 4 modalities combined. That it was the writing plus the EMDR plus the meditation plus Tai Chi. And suddenly their new brain was
There's a release.
And cranking up, and new connections were happening. And the past suddenly began to seem very far away. And I'll say one other thing.
Yeah.
These individuals, I watched them become the most self-realized, the most compassionate, the most beautiful people I have ever witnessed. And that is the gift of trauma. That right there is the gift of trauma, that it brings people into a post-traumatic growth state that is more self-realized and also leaves them more aware of everyone around them. And these are the people who are out there in the communities helping in Puerto Rico right now, or working on new important legislation to protect those who aren't protected. These are the people that we look around who are so good with kids, or that nurse in the hospital you'll never forget. These are people who've experienced post-traumatic growth, and it's possible for everyone.
Well said, because we never know how blessing shows up in these ugly little packages, but
right.
Then they turn out to be blessings, the best defining moments. But just like breathing, healing is an ongoing thing.
Absolutely.
You don't just breathe once and say, I'm done breathing. We heal every day with different things. You saw it with the people that you followed, that it was, many modalities. So I want to encourage you, my listening friend, if you haven't done so already, call 407-373-5959 to get a free copy of this book. It's called Childhood Disrupted. It is an amazing book. Donna, I'm so grateful that in a way that you went through your past, that you started healing. That's what happened to me. I wanted to heal. And as I started to heal, I started to open up to other things. And this is a very timely book. And I want to thank you for not only writing it, but for being part of the Lillian McDermott Radio Show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And to you, my listening friend, it's not the snake bite that bites you. It's the poison in your blood, and it wreaks havoc. So be aware of what's causing the poison. And I want to encourage you to continue coming back here, because I'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Okay, so we said goodbye to our listeners, and now I want to address, because you talked about forgiveness, which is very important. We talk about forgiveness here on the show all the time, and gratitude.
Absolutely.
How incredible is gratitude?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Every minute of the day, you can change every minute of the day simply by going from what's wrong to what's right. And amplifying the good. Just amplify the good. Find it. Could be the way the light is hitting the tree outside your window.
Yeah.
And amplifying that moment is so important all day long. Even if you do it 5% of the time, that's enough to change a life.
Well, that one of the books that you didn't talk about was Does Anyone Else Look Like Me?
Sure.
Yeah. I just want to mention that book before we go. And then one thing I wanted to talk about, because many people hold their trauma like a treasured secret. And so I would like for you to share your lessons, what you've learned about the prices of keeping these secrets.
Well, the great saying, the body always keeps a score. So that's the problem with keeping secrets, is that your body will let you know. And the past really ticks away inside like a little time bomb ready to go off later. And I've never met an individual for whom just not paying attention has worked. So, and I've been a science journalist for a really long time. And the whole idea that you can sweep it under the rug, forget about it, it's not important, that's often the message we get from our families, that we don't have the right to feel what we feel, or that we're not validated or seen or known for who we really are. And that's the commonality in all of these 10 traumas that scientists looked at.
Mm-hmm.
And I should make clear, since then, many things have been added to the ACE test
Mm-hmm.
by other practitioners. Of course, bullying, sibling bullying, poverty, financial hardship, many other things cause chronic unpredictable stress in childhood. But the important thing to remember is that if you have had one of these types of trauma and the message you got was that you shouldn't pay attention as a child, right? So if have a parent who's coming in and let's say you have a parent who's drunk half the time, and you never know what day it's going to be. And one day you're getting a lollipop, and the other day your parent comes and throws your new tennis shoes in the toilet, and you never know what's going to happen. The message you're getting categorically is, don't pay attention. There's nothing to see here.
Yeah.
This is normal. And if you were to speak up, what would happen to you if you were 5 years old? I interviewed someone for whom this exact story was the case, and she would be put in the closet. Yeah. So that's the message you've gotten your entire life, is that this isn't happening. There's nothing to see here. Look away, suck it up, and shut up. And so it would make sense that to continue doing that in the face of chronic illness, chronic pain, chronic mental health struggles is not an option. It's not an option, because it sure hasn't worked.
Beautifully said. When I was in my late 40s, I knew I had like a little hole in my heart.
That's a very good way to say it.
I had a little hole. It was the size of like a pin, very small, but I knew it was there. Very successful. Everything was great. Of course, autoimmune, thyroid condition. I have asthma, but no more. My asthma is controlled with vitamin C. But there's other things that just if were magnified, if I got sick, and it just didn't add up. My life was great husband, wonderful children, but I had that hole. And by the time, as I get reflecting on turning 50, I'm thinking, something's got to be changing. And so somebody called me and they told me about this workshop that they went on, and I immediately said yes, because our heart desires go out there and somehow they come back to you, and we just need to say yes. We just need to say yes. I didn't know when it was, where it was. I just said yes. And that started my real healing. Logically, I had healed with it, but there was a little bit of resentment in there still.
Of course. Yeah.
But then as I started doing this then I went back, because I thought, this is great. It was part of the show. If I'm going to expect my listening friends and now my viewing friends to grow, I wanted to grow too.
Sure.
Lead by example. So then I became a life coach. But one of the things that I discovered was my underlying conversation. And I want to know what your underlying conversation. My underlying conversation as a child was that I was insignificant.
I think that's very common. And in my book, The Last Best Cure, I detail my interior monologue.
So what was your interior monologue?
Yeah, so it took me a while to really hear it. I needed help to hear it. And in my case, in The Last Best Cure, and I talk about all of this, I went to a meditation teacher who basically said, I can't even work with you because you're such a terrible friend to yourself that like, you're not even going to be able to think about meditating because you're not a friend to yourself. And so she wouldn't even teach me until I went through an entire sort of pre-program to hear and see how really awful I was to myself. And so she had me go through a process which changed my life. And that was to put sticky notes all over my house that said forgiven. And why that word? So every time I saw one of those, I would cry for maybe like 3 months. Wow. And it didn't make any sense. You know, I hadn't done anything wrong. You know, I wasn't a bad person. I had this great family. I rescued dogs. I would lecture and try to help people. You know, what did I have to be forgiven for? However, as I began to go through that shedding of whatever grief I had, not knowing what I had to be forgiven for, that opened me up to hear the way I was talking to myself. And then I could begin to hear, oh, you get to the gas station and you get gas on your shoe. You idiot. You know, oh my God, you're going to stink when you get to this interview. Oh, what in the world are you doing? Of course you would get gas on your shoe. You know, you can't.
Would you ever talk to anyone like that,
No,
Donna?
Never. And so this is, you know, that really important thing about mindfulness and self-talk and naming the feelings as you go through your day, you know, shame, grief, anger, and trying to, in the course of writing that book, I write about how I developed a friend, an imaginary friend, just like a child. It was the only way for me to get out of that cycle of self-criticism and self-flagellation. And I saw in my mind my older self talking to me. And she would just say, Donna, this too is passing. This too is okay. You're okay. It's all right. It's all right. And hug me. And I'd be like, wow, that sure is nice. You know, wow, what a powerful thing. And since then, more research has come out showing the relationship between self-talk and changes in the brain. And funnily enough, saying your own name to yourself. So the combination of saying your own name, Lillian, you can do this. Lillian, it's going to be okay. The positive reinforcement with your own name to you lights up areas.
I have never heard. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for teaching Matt that today.
Lights up areas of the brain that help the amygdala and the stress response to calm down. So I became very good friends with my older self and tried to, every time I saw a sticky note, and I even had them in the car that said forgiven, I try to shift from that place of self-loathing and blame into a place where I could hear a little bit nicer conversation in my own mind.
Beautiful.
And that really worked for me, and that underscores that everyone I've ever interviewed has a different way of doing this. But it's the important thing is to begin and to find a way out of what you call that hole in your heart. Mm-hmm. You know, that sense that you're going to cry for something small happens, you don't know why. That sense that you're shaking before in a big important business meeting and you just can't figure out why because you've done a million of them before, but here you are again, not feeling good in your own skin. Yeah. So whatever the process is to begin to feel good in your own skin, everyone finds a different way. It's the most personal story ever for each individual because what happened to you is the most personal story ever.
You know, thank you for sharing that story, Donna. For me, I developed a mantra. There are 2 mantras that I say to myself. And of course, being aware of the voice in your head and who's speaking with you is invaluable, invaluable. And recalling some of those stories where those voices were established is so important. Going back there to that child within us that we still have, we take everywhere. But I have 2 mantras. The first one I created was to counterbalance my belief of being unlovable, my belief of being insignificant, of not being enough. And so my mantra became, I am a creative, loving, intuitive, trusting leader.
Nice.
And the group that I worked with they would say, yes, you are. But the mantra that I bring with me on a regular basis that helps kind of calm and overall is, I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am wise, I am love. And that right there is something that I remind myself of on a regular basis. So with that in mind, I went back to my children and I apologized to every single one of them, because I had to let them know that I didn't know better. Well, and once you know better,
that's right.
Once you know better, you do better. Yes. I raised them with fear, the same fear that I was raised with. Mm-hmm. How do we stop that with our children? How do we help that? I know that chapter 8 for you is, parenting well when you haven't been well parented. Sure. So what is your advice? We'll like this, the final word with Donna Jackson Nakazawa.
So it's really important to understand that trauma is intergenerational. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about forgiveness practices, it's important to remember that your parents, if they were the source of trauma for you, they had their own trauma. So we see trauma goes back generations. A parent who was dismissive or humiliating or depressed or drinking or bickering or hitting you or whatever it was, they also had trauma. So it really helps individuals to think about what their parent might have faced when they were young, mm-hmm. and suddenly to begin to put the pieces together and understand they went through genetic changes that affected their stress response. And we know that parents who have had trauma are either overreacting or underreacting, what we call overmodulation or undermodulation. So if they're overreacting, that means everything is too much for them. Maybe they're hypervigilant, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Or maybe they're so reactive you could drop a pin in front of them and they're going to smack you. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they're underreactive. The child is crying, needs emotional validation, support, a hug, and they're underreacting. It's nothing, get over it, stop it. Yeah. So that's how traumatized parents grow up to parent. Traumatized kids grow up to parent. And the revelation that this cycle is in place is a huge aha for people when they look at how they're raising their own kids. And as I said before, usually something happens that causes people to go on this kind of healing journey. Often something's happening with their kids. Mm. And they realize that they're needing to be a different kind of parent than the kind of parent that they had. And they realize that the parent that they had did their best, but it left them with scars. Mm. And they realize that they're leaving their child very unintentionally with scars. So we all know there's nothing we love more than our kids. There's absolutely nothing you wouldn't do for your child. And yet these patterns of intergenerational communication and reactivity and underreactivity, they play out in our living rooms every day, unwanted, unconsciously. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is for parents to manage their own stuff. The most important thing is to go on your own healing journey. Because I promise you, if you hadn't done that, you wouldn't have been able to apologize to your kids. Mm.
So not only did I apologize, I asked for their forgiveness.
That's right. And you couldn't have done it if you hadn't begun to heal Lillian. So the most important thing I tell parents, it's that old cliche about the oxygen mask, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So this isn't to say, get enormously selfish and spend billions of dollars on your own, healing journey and go to Tibet and study. I mean, in the course of living a normal parenting life, to begin to ask these questions, go on this journey, find these healing answers for yourself. Because once you begin that process, it shows your kids how important it is to take care of yourself, but it also allows you the pause before you respond to them. It allows you to begin to do the practices that I talk about in chapter 8 in parenting, because I promise you, if you haven't begun to heal yourself, you aren't going to be able to do the different types of things that will help you be a better parent. And just to name a few of them, it's so important that, if you make a mistake with kids, that you make a repair right away. You apologize right away or 30 years later. But the idea of making a repair, let's say you're yelling at a kid because you have a teenager who's on the computer and didn't take out the trash, and you've asked 3 times and you have a lot of trauma.
And who hasn't yelled at their kids for that?
Yeah, right. And all of a sudden you're saying something that you really regret. When you're able to make a repair right away, the fear response in a child's brain goes down when they hear their parent apologize. That is not to say that you don't also impose limits. When we have parents who've been traumatized, they tend to be over punitive or under punitive. They're over punitive, they yell too much or they smack their kid, or they're under punitive. So that, let's say they yell at their kids, but then they think of how their mom yelled at them and it made them feel so bad. So then they're apologizing for yelling, but there are no consequences.
Yeah.
So going through your own healing journey allows you to find that messy middle of appropriate parenting, something you may never have experienced yourself, and to be able to apologize when you're wrong and still impose limits. Hey, I'm really sorry that I called you a loser when you didn't take out the trash, which hopefully you didn't call them, but maybe you did. It happens. Or said you were just like your dad. That was a horrible thing to say. I was wrong. I apologize. There's no excuse for my saying it. And you know the rules. If you don't take out the trash, you lose your phone. So here's how it is. I'm really sorry. And take out the trash or you lose your phone. It allows the awareness to come back into a place of mindful parenting, which you never received. And that is hard work, to give something you've never received, and to be able to then also learn to see and validate a child who's in front of you in a way you were never seen or validated. To be able to say, when a kid is crying, tell me more about that. I hear you. I see you. What's going on? That has to feel awful because nobody ever did any of that for you. So you're learning all these practices. And here's the amazing thing. As you go through this healing journey and you begin to become a mindful parent, you also become more mindful to the child within.
Very good.
And that's it.
I love it. Well done, Donna Jackson Nakazawa. Well done. And I'm grateful. I believe that we're all teachers and we're all students.
Yes.
And you've been a great teacher to the show today. And I want to thank you and keep writing these books. And hopefully you can keep coming back and sharing your wisdom. Thank you so much
for
your
have
wisdom.
A great day.
You
Thanks
too.
So much.
And
Bye.
thank you for looking so beautiful first thing in the morning.
Well, thank you for saying so.
Okay. You take care. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
And to my viewing friends, I'm grateful that you were able to stay tuned till the end of the broadcast. Have a beautiful day.
Bye.
Bye.